My first time watching it right with you.
Alexander 76 has lived a life unlike many others. For the majority of his life, he's lived with an iron lung, and he's one of the last people in the world still using the respirator, which dates back to 1928. Despite his
I think that's to help you breathe.
unusual circumstances, he's lived an incredibly full life, and he's never accepted anything less. I'm not gonna accept from anybody their limitations on my life. I'm not gonna do it. My life's incredible.
That's not a lie.
When Paul was just 6 years old, he ran into his family's home in a suburb of Dallas, Texas, and told his mother he wasn't feeling well. Since his birth in 1946, Paul had been a normal, vibrant, and active child, but now something was clearly wrong.
Oh, I
"Oh
did
my
it.
God, not my son," Paul recalled his mother saying. Following doctor's orders, he spent the next several days in bed recovering, but the boy clearly had polio and he wasn't getting any better. Less than a week after he started feeling sick, he couldn't hold anything or could swallow or breathe. His parents finally rushed to the hospital, where he joined countless other children experiencing similar symptoms. Before vaccines were available for polio, more than 15,000 people were paralyzed from the virus. Polio, an incredibly contagious infection, can spread even when an infected person has no symptoms. Fever, stiffness, muscle.
That sounds like something that was going on a year ago. It's still going on, you know. Sounds like something y'all took, you know, a little bit of medicine for. Oh, it's crazy. A little medicine for.
Pain and vomiting. In rare cases, polio can also cause paralysis and death. Paul was examined by a doctor and pronounced dead, but then another doctor took a look at him and gave him another chance at life. The second doctor performed an emergency tracheotomy, and following the surgery, Paul was placed inside an iron lung.
Would you stay in there for 7 years? But imagine you're 13, or whatever age you say, 14, even 20, to live in there for the rest of your life, laying down. He probably has a bunch of bed sores, because they get that in the hospital. I don't know if they let them get out of that iron lung thing. I've heard of that before, but yeah, that's hard. Imagine you're a kid, you say you want to live, then you get older, you're like, I don't want to live like this. What do? That's something to think about.
When he eventually woke up 3 days later, he was among several rows of children also encased in iron lungs. "I didn't know what had happened. I had all kinds of imaginings like I died. I kept asking myself, is this what death is? Is this a coffin? Or have I gone to some undesirable place?" The Texas native told As It Happens host Carol Off in 2017. Paul, who also had a tracheotomy, couldn't speak, making the whole event even more terrible.
That doesn't look like a fun life. I don't know. I would not do that. He's been in there for 50 years, 50 something years. Look at that. Look at his face.
Terrifying. I tried to move, but I couldn't, not even a finger. I tried to touch something to figure it out, but I never could, so it was pretty strange. The machine invented in the late 1920s was the first to ventilate a human being. It was often referred to in the early days as the drinker respirator. The device is hermetically sealed from the neck down and creates a negative pressure in the chamber that draws air into the patient's lungs. If it generates overpressure, the air is forced out of the lungs again, and the patient exhales. Paul spent 18 months inside the metal canister recovering from the initial infection, and he wasn't alone. The year Paul was infected by the virus, 1952, was a very dark year looking at the statistics. Almost 58,000 people, primarily children, contracted the virus in the US in 1952. Sadly, 3,145.
Would you leave your kid in there for however many years? Or would you leave it up to your kid to say, it's your choice? What do you want to do? Do you want to live or do you want to die? That's rough. That's really rough. Like, can't even think about that.
Died. You can see rows and rows of iron lungs full of children, he said, according to The Guardian. While some may have given up their will to live, it only fueled Paul's will. He would hear doctors say he's going to die today or be alive whenever they passed by him, and he wanted to prove them wrong. In 1954, he was discharged from the hospital, but he quickly learned his life was different than before. People didn't like me very much back then, he said during a video interview in 2021. I felt like they were uncomfortable around me. But with the help of a therapist named Mrs. Sullivan who visited him twice a week, little by little his life began to improve. His therapist made a deal with him that if he could frog breathe, a technique where you trap air in your mouth by flattening your tongue and opening your throat, without the iron lung for 3 minutes, she'd get him a puppy. It was hard work, but within a year, Paul was able to spend more and more time outside the iron lung. When he was 21, he became the first person to graduate a Dallas high school with honors without ever physically attending class. He then set his sights on college, and after several rejections, he was accepted to Southern Methodist University. They said I was too crippled and didn't have the vaccination, he recalled. 2 years of tormenting them, and they accepted me on 2 conditions. 1, that I take the polio vaccine, and 2, that a fraternity would be responsible for me. He then went on to...
So this is not the only time they made people take a certain, vaccine, but polio must be crazy if they don't want to accept him to no college. At least he did something. He went to school. He went to college. Not a lot of us went to college. I never went to college. He did something. Looks like he can't walk. He can't use his hands. You saw him, he was painted with his mouth.
Graduate from Southern Methodist University and then attended law school at the University of Texas at Austin. He passed the bar and became a lawyer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And that was a pretty damn good one too. Even after a 30-year-long career in the courtroom, he continued to keep busy by writing.
Wait, he was a lawyer laying down? Wow. What does polio do, really? Let me see. A virus that may cause paralysis and is easily preventable by polio vaccine. Polio is transmitted through contaminated water and food or contact with infected person. I don't know. I don't remember if I took a polio vaccine, but they probably give you that when you were a baby.
Writing a book, which he typed all by himself using a pen attached. During the courtroom, he continued to keep busy by writing a book, which he typed all by himself using a pen attached to his stick. According to a Gizmodo, Paul is believed to be one of the last people alive today who still lives in the near-obsolete machine. The 76-year-old is confined to his old iron lung around the clock and has spent much of his life in a can. I've traveled with it, put it in a truck, took it with me. I've gone to college with it, lived in a dorm. That freaked everybody out, he said. Paul's type of iron lung hasn't been manufactured for half a century because ventilators are now much more advanced and sophisticated. But the polio survivor prefers his metal chamber, even though new technology is available. The Dallas attorney had to make a desperate YouTube announcement when the metal lung almost broke down 7 years ago. Fortunately, there is still a ban.
How does he travel with that? That thing probably weighs a ton or 2. It's bigger than a doorway. If you telling me you gotta hire somebody to take it apart, put it back together, take it where you gotta take it to, then when you leave that place, you gotta do it again. And what happens in the middle of the day if you just can't breathe and you need the machine but it's too far away? He probably has a smaller ventilator around. But that's crazy to carry around the machine. Not even carry around. He has to U-haul that shit back and forth to wherever he's going.
In machines all over the country, so many spare parts are out there. Paul has also had help from enthusiasts who love approaching old technology. People who had polio and they're dead. What'd they do with the iron lung? I found them in barns, I found them in garages, junk shops. Not much, but enough to scrounge for parts, he says. Paul, who has outlived both his parents and his older brother, is now working on a second book. Paul said he's been able to live such a fulfilling life because he never gave up. I wanted to accomplish the
Damn. He did a lot. I wonder if he got married. If that's his wife or his mother. that was like putting the lotion on his face. Damn.
Was told I couldn't accomplish, he said, and to achieve the dreams I dreamed. Polio has effectively been wiped out of the United States since 1979. However, vaccine-derived cases of polio crop up every now and then, which is still a cause for concern. Paul is definitely an inspiration. He's crafted his life against all odds and has a courageous and compelling story that I hope everyone will share. His determination shows that the only limits are the limits.
He had a text with his face. That's the end of the video. What would y'all do if y'all was caught in that machine? Would you stay alive and live in there for 50 to 60 years? Or would you just call it quits and self-delete? What if it was your kids? What if it's one of your kids in there? Imagine that. And your son tells you he wants to live and just have to stay in there for however long. Would you give your son that choice, or would you tell him just go live life? It's like, that's hard. He had a hard life, but he did a lot with it. I'm not even gonna lie. I'll see you on the next one.
Toodaloo, motherfucker.